best. It's Wednesday here on The Story, and tonight, a new ruling shows Washington State University could be partly to blame for a deadly hazing incident 5 years ago. We hear from the parents who lost their son. Plus, researchers make a discovery under the Cascade Mountains that could likely be the largest of its kind in the world. We'll tell you what it is. But first, I sat down with a local U.S. Marine who identifies as transgender. They're sharing their story with KGW after President Donald Trump's latest move to change policy around transgender service members. It's our big story tonight. On Monday, President Donald Trump signed 4 executive orders that have the potential to reshape parts of the U.S. military. Included is a new policy on transgender service members and ending diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in the military. Initiatives like these have been among the president's top priorities throughout his first few days in office. Right now, the executive order pertaining to transgender service members isn't expected to remove anyone from service, but rather change where they sleep and get dressed and bathe. Now, this would also reinstate a policy from Trump's first term, barring trans people from enlisting and serving openly. Here's what the president said back in 2017.
Look, I have great respect for the community. I think I have great support, or I've had great support from that community. I got a lot of votes. But the transgender, the military is working on it now. They're doing the work. It's been a very difficult situation, and I think I'm doing a lot of people a favor by coming out and just saying it. As you know, it's been a very complicated issue for the military. It's been a very confusing issue for the military, and I think I'm doing the military a great favor.
Now today, I talked with a U.S. Marine who lives in Kelso, Washington. Ethan Fighter identifies as transgender and served in the Marine Corps as a reservist and bulk fuel specialist for 2 years before leaving their contract early. Here's what Ethan has to say about Trump's executive orders.
I think if, these things are enacted in the military, it's going to further separate, LGBTQ community people in the military further, and it's going to put them in more compromising positions.
And from firsthand experience, how hard is that mentally?
I mean, it's kind of hard to describe. It's hard to feel that. I mean, yeah, it's just, it's complete denial of yourself.
The order mandates that the Defense Department update its military medical standards within 60 days to promptly, quote, end invented and identification-based pronoun usage and prohibit people assigned male at birth from using women's sleeping, changing, and bathing facilities. What do you make of that?
Wow. I mean, I think it's going to affect a lot of people. I think a lot of people who are trans and wanting to serve and, do something good, are going to see that and feel even worse, because now it's like even when they're trying to participate in the system, it's rejecting them. Also, just the fact that this is an official document that sees these things as made up, as like invented, is incredibly insulting.
Now, during their service, Ethan identified as male. They were afraid to come out publicly at the time for fear of bullying and retaliation. Ethan tells me it was the most isolating experience of their life.
I just wanted to fit in, and it was very difficult. I was called during rifle training. The person who was teaching us would always call me Fairy all the time, and I couldn't say anything back. Obviously, I was in boot camp, so they tell you you're less than dirt when you're a recruit. Recruits aren't humans in their methodology. So, this person calling me Fairy, outing me in front of my whole unit, and just kind of generally calling me a name that is basically a slur. And then just having to take that and just be like, haha, yeah, it's a joke. Wasn't fun. And obviously that person in power doing that made it to where everyone else saw me as this sort of lesser entity, and so no one ever talked to me. No one ever wanted to be around me.
Ethan fears these executive orders could further isolate the LGBTQ+ community in the military.
Find someone who can genuinely respond and genuinely tell you how it is for them, because I can talk about it all day, but you aren't going to know what it is to be that and to experience that until you've talked to someone who's experienced it themselves.
President Trump's executive order won't go into effect right away. It'll take some time. So that means trans service members won't be immediately ejected from the service. Now, the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs sent us the following statement saying, quote, "They're actively reviewing changes and actions at the federal level and how they may impact Oregon. As it does so, the agency stands proudly and unequivocally beside every veteran who served our nation with honor, regardless of sexual orientation, race, or gender identity." All right, now to a whiplash moment. Earlier today, President Trump rescinded a memo over a spending freeze on federal grants. Now, this comes less than 2 days after the White House sent out the order to make sure that spending matched the president's policy goals. But the potential for an abrupt halt on federal loans and grant money sparked widespread confusion and legal challenges. That chaos had a ripple effect that reached far beyond D.C., leaving nonprofits here in the Northwest that rely heavily on federal dollars wondering if they would be affected and how they would recover. You might remember yesterday we talked with Meals on Wheels, a nonprofit that gets federal dollars to deliver food to the elderly. Now, the head of Meals on Wheels told Kyla Boji if federal funding were to go away, it would be a huge hit in the amount of people that they can feed. Last year, they fed 11,000 people in the Portland-Vancouver metro area. Now, Trump's move today to rescind this memo comes after outcry from nonprofits, a move from a federal judge to block the order and lawsuits from multiple states, including Oregon. However, Trump's orders to cut federal spending in areas like diversity programs and climate change remain in place. Now to new details on a murder and attempted murder case we've covered closely here on The Story, and a rare explanation of a jury's split decision. A Portland Uber driver will have a second trial after a jury couldn't reach a unanimous decision last month. Now, you may remember October 2023 when a road rage incident outside the Moxie Hotel in downtown Portland escalated, leaving one person dead and another seriously injured. 48-year-old Jeffrey Hammond shot and killed a man from his car in the middle of the day. He tried to shoot that man again as he lay on the ground, and then he shot another man as he drove away. Hammond claimed self-defense. A Multnomah County jury found him guilty on assault and weapons charges, but the jury couldn't agree on murder and attempted murder. The trial ended with a hung jury on those 2 counts. All right, let's bring in Evan Watson now. Evan, you covered this trial, and once it ended, you had some questions.
Yeah, myself and everyone else who is paying attention to this, right? How did the jury come to this split decision, the hung jury decision? And also, what was that vote like? So I did what I like to do. I filed public records requests. I found some of these jury members and then asked them what happened behind closed doors. Yeah,
talk to us more about that process. I mean, we don't often hear from people on the jury.
Sure, yeah, it's a little unusual. And I will say you can't just learn through public records who was on a specific jury, but jury registers, the people who serve on juries in Multnomah County, for example, that register is public. So what I did is I looked at the time span that these people served on this jury, and then when I narrowed that down, I was able to call a bunch of people and then connect with a few, and eventually I talked with one who you'll hear from in just a moment, and asked her, hey, how did we end up with this decision? And here's what Martine Freiberger told me. Ultimately, there was a hung jury decision for the murder and attempted murder counts. How did the jury get to that decision?
Well, we did deliberate for 3 days, and it was just one person that held fast to their perspective.
One of the 12 thought he was not guilty.
Right.
And for a guilty verdict, it needs to be unanimous.
Unanimous, yeah. In a very slim way, I could see what they were saying, but I did not agree. I felt that a guilty verdict would have been the right thing.
Wow, one person? I can't believe it was just one person. So just listening to her talk there, I can't help but think, Because she's talking about this, will that taint the future jury in the second trial?
Sure, and that is a question that some people I talked to had as well, but the jury selection process accounts for that. This is a case that's had a lot of media coverage before this and will likely have media coverage after this leading up to the trial. So when they choose a jury, they find out if they've seen or heard anything about this trial, and then also you ask the question, will your opinion be changed by that in any way? That will all be ironed out in the jury selection process.
Okay, so we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, very
all right.
interesting.
Evan Watson, thanks so much. If you want to catch more of this, his full report, you can watch it on KGW+. Well, now to an update on a story we've been following for months. A controversial plan to remove hundreds of trees in Forest Park. It garnered a big response during a public hearing today. Portland General Electric says it needs to upgrade existing power lines in the area and build new ones. They argue it's necessary to keep nearby homes and businesses powered. But many of those at this morning's hearing say the plan would do more harm than good, pointing to potential environmental impacts to the surrounding area. A recent report by the city recommended rejecting the proposal, saying it would have significant environmental impacts. PGE says it disagrees with the city's conclusion. After several hours of testimony, the hearings officer said a decision wouldn't be made until March. Here's Devin Haskins.
As I mentioned, this is a land use hearing, and it is open to the public.
In an hours-long public meeting Wednesday, hundreds joined in to listen and speak either for or against PGE's plan in Forest Park. The utility company says it needs to update infrastructure in the park near Highway 30, adding new lines and upgrading existing ones to meet the growing electricity demand.
For over 50 years, this part of Forest Park has been home to transmission lines that are PGE's and others that belong to Bonneville Power Administration. Forest Park is a unique urban forest, and it is a jewel for all Portlanders, and that's why proposing work in Forest Park was not done lightly.
PGE says the entire project would impact under 5 acres of the entire 5,200-acre park. But the plan also calls for removing or topping off nearly 400 trees.
Where we can, we're looking at topping trees, and so a lot of the top trees that are proposed out there would be left as habitat features, but they are counted as tree removals.
The park sits on the west end of Portland in the West Hills and is managed by the city.
Portland Parks and Recreation has significant concerns with the project and does not support it.
Rachel Felice is Portland Parks and Recreation's nature manager.
PGE's proposal fails to meet several of the approval criteria required for any project to be allowed in Forest Park.
Others argue it puts several wildlife populations at risk and unnecessarily cuts down old trees.
PGE's Harborton project is a scam. It's not about reliability for us. PGE wants to bulldoze Forest Park, ancient trees, centuries old, gone.
And while there was more comments against the plan versus those for it, several people believed it was needed and spoke in favor of it.
Yeah, I know. 397 trees are going to be removed over 4.7 acres. But PGE is going to replace these trees with native white oak, which will benefit the ecosystem and create biodiversity.
And while the city spoke against it, the Portland Metro Chamber supported it.
Without swift implementation of the Harborton Reliability Project, our region risks an unacceptable likelihood of outages during extreme weather events when our community most desperately needs reliable power.
Now again, no decisions were made and won't be for at least another month. PGE says it has looked at 20 other options and they maintain that this is the best one. All right, still ahead, a landmark decision in the state of Washington means Washington State University could bear some responsibility in the death of a student in a hazing incident more than 5 years ago. We hear from that student's parents who have been pushing for accountability since the day they lost their son. That's when the story returns. This next story takes us to Washington, where for the first time in state history, a court has ruled a university bears some responsibility for the death of a student from hazing. More than 5 years ago, Washington State University freshman Sam Martinez was found dead at his fraternity's live-out house. The cause of death? Acute alcohol poisoning. WSU argued they had no duty to protect Sam from the frat and that the alleged behavior happened off campus in a private residence. But last Thursday, the Washington State Court of Appeals ruled that's not the case. Susanna Frame spoke with Sam's parents after the landmark decision.
I was thrilled, really. I mean, this is about accountability. It's about holding WSU to account for what they knew was happening on their campus. They didn't share that information. Sam died as a result.
Jolene Houts and Hector Martinez say their family is a step closer to justice for their son, Sam, a 19-year-old college freshman who died as a result of fraternity hazing. The State Court of Appeals has just ruled it's not just his fraternity, but his school, Washington State University, that's to blame for Sam's death.
And when I found out, I have tears in my eyes because I was like, justice, I hear this, it's like, I was just, yes. Now you cannot say that you're not responsible. You're the one responsible for my son.
For years, Wazoo officials have argued they had no duty to protect Sam from his fraternity, Alpha Tau Omega, or ATO, that he died at a private, off-campus location at the hands of adults engaging in illegal conduct. But the court has ruled that's off base, that Wazoo knew about their conduct and had a duty to control the fraternity and protect Sam from the predictable harms of fraternal hazing and alcohol misuse. The morning of November 12, 2019, Pullman police responded to the ATO house to find Sam lying on his stomach on the basement floor, unresponsive. The night before, ATO held their annual Big Brother party. Sam shot this video hours before his death. You can hear an upperclassman encouraging a freshman to down a shot. Police found Sam's big brother gave him and his buddy in the red jersey a half-gallon of rum, the equivalent of 40 shots, to split between the two. The coroner said Sam died around 4:30 in the morning from acute alcohol poisoning. Investigations by police and Wazoo concluded the events leading to Sam's death constituted illegal hazing.
He died alone, and I sometimes, in dark moments, I wonder, did he wonder where I was? Did he wonder where we were? It's agonizing to think that he didn't have somebody with him in that moment of passage.
The appeals court ruled Wazoo knew all about ATO's troubled past, but didn't share it with incoming freshmen, including a 2017 incident where ATO forced pledges to drink large quantities of alcohol and withstand aggressive hazing and emotional abuse. Photos in a complaint showed new members being forced to stand in toilets and a freshman getting tackled to the ground. In 2018, the year before Sam died, ATO expelled nearly half of its members after complaints of hazing and drug use. Emails show Wazoo officials were well aware of the ATO investigation.
They had a terrible history. University leaders knew that all the way up to the top, and they did nothing.
Wazoo had the power to sanction ATO for code of conduct violations, including withdrawing official school recognition, which would shut down a fraternity. But historically, after reports of hazing, Wazoo handed out little to no serious consequences.
That's what needs to change. They need to start from the inside and work their way out to get to a place where when they say we don't tolerate hazing, they absolutely mean that. And I don't think they're there.
Sam's parents have been vocal about the need for systemic change when it comes to situations like this. Their advocacy led to new laws passed both at the state and national level, aimed at curbing hazing in school and increasing school accountability. In 2023, Sam's parents helped to get the Sam Martinez Stop Hazing Law passed, which increased the penalties for the most serious hazing cases from a misdemeanor to a felony. It made Washington the 15th state to make hazing a felony. In December of last year, and on the federal level, they were instrumental in passing the Stop Campus Hazing Act. That law requires colleges to create a campus-wide, research-based hazing education and prevention program, as well as include hazing incidents in their annual crime reports. They also launched the nonprofit hazinginfo.org, the nation's first free comprehensive database of hazing incidents. Right now, their campus lookup feature allows you to search any hazing incident reports from dozens of colleges across 9 states, including Washington. All right, coming up, researchers, including some from both the University of Oregon and Oregon State, make a discovery beneath the Cascade Mountains that experts say is likely the largest of its kind in the world. Stick with us to find out what it is. The Oregon Cascades are a favorite place for skiers and snowboarders this time of year, but researchers are more interested in what's buried underneath all of that snow. A hidden reservoir storing what is estimated to be more than 4 times the size of Crater Lake. Here's Joe Ranieri with how scientists were able to make this discovery with the help from decades-old research.
We know the Oregon Cascades are buried beneath heavy snow and glaciers this time of year, but new research is showing something even bigger than that.
This aquifer is not a huge open reservoir, right? It's not something you could go swimming in.
Leif Karlstrom is a volcanologist and professor of earth science at the University of Oregon. He was part of a research team with Oregon State University, Duke, and the U.S. Forest Service to map out how much water is stored beneath the volcanic rocks of the Cascades.
It's all sort of locked up in fractures in the bedrock. But it's what we call active groundwater, meaning that it's constantly flowing.
It was widely known for decades there was an aquifer under the Santiam Pass region between Eugene and Bend. But what they didn't know was just how big it was.
The volume that we found is comparable to large continental lakes, really. It's just locked up in the ground, in the bedrock.
They discovered it to be nearly 3 times the size of Lake Mead, a reservoir that covers parts of Nevada and Arizona, which also supplies water to California, Arizona, and Nevada. They initially thought it was the same size as the lake.
We used old geothermal exploration wells, so these holes that were drilled in the 70s and 80s that were looking for geothermal potential.
Thanks to that research from decades ago, it allowed them to get a better idea of just how large the aquifer is. So what does it mean to have 19 cubic miles of water running under the crest of the Cascades?
We have a tremendous resource in the Cascades, and that's well known. I mean, I think we all take it for granted living up here.
An extremely valuable resource that could become even more important as climate change impacts other sources of water. Joe Ranieri, KGW News.
Well, that is the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. The good stuff is coming your way next. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. A reminder, you can stream the story on your own schedule. Download the free KGW Plus app, available now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. We wish you all a happy Wednesday. We've made it. We're halfway through the week. I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.